everybody. Hello, gorgeous faces. It's so good to see you guys. I know I saw you last week, but now that we're not doing 2 calls a week, it feels like a really long time. Good to have you here. I've got Jess Escalona. I'm going to cheat and break my own rules. Only quirky questions allowed, except I'm going to sneak an actual work question in here that I'm dying to find out the answer to. And I want Jess's opinion. You just happen to be the first person lucky enough to see me after it came up. So, Jess, 10-year-old Jess, tell us about her. Was she dreaming big about the future? Was she living in the moment? Was she shy and quiet? Was she bossy and owning the room? Tell us about 10-year-old Jess.
Wow, that's a great question. So 10-year-old Jess was playing classical piano
Wow.
about 2 hours a day after school. I was an honor student. School was easy for me. I know some experiences are not like that. I was very shy, very quiet. I've had the same best friend since I was about 5. So
Oh, I love that. Were you self-driven, or was it like discipline from your parents that caused you to be so high achieving?
So I am Filipino American. My parents are immigrants, and I think that always has like kind of they try to enforce that discipline on you. If it wasn't an A, it was kind of like, meh, who cares? Which is crazy because now my kids get like a B and I'm like, yeah, we got a B.
I have to interject something here. This is a little bit weird. You know how I mentioned, and I'll mention this later in the call, you guys, I love Jess's Twitter feed. There's just something lovely and nice and like just like human being shines out of it. And I might have been a little over the top because it was one of those Twitter feeds where like people read it and they feel like they know you, right? So I'm like, hi, Jess, how are you? Come on the couch. Who is this? Probably. But when finding out about the Philippines, we had a class when I was a very little girl in school, when you're too young to even know. And they taught us Tagalog.
Tagalog, yeah.
Tagalog. And it was my favorite class I've ever had in my entire life. So I have this weird thing with the Philippines. I was obsessed with it. I was a little girl. I kept walked around, told everyone I was Filipino. I was like 7.
I love that.
And every time I had a boss in my life, every Filipino I've ever met has been like a dear, dear friend. I think I might need to move there someday, just because there must be something randomly that, have you ever gone there?
Yeah, I traveled there a few times as a kid. I've been meaning to go back, but it's one of those things where the journey is just far. I cannot just up and leave like I leave to go to California. I have to strategically plan out like a good amount of time to take off, or at least simultaneously work and also save for that air flight alone is like almost $1,000. So I haven't been back ever since, but I really like that. You should go visit. The beaches are beautiful. The people are really nice. Most places are really nice, but I would argue probably at this point, a lot of those places are like becoming touristy places. So it's fairly safe.
I wonder if it's maybe similar to Italian. I don't know. The people just seem, I can't, I need to move. I think I need to move there someday. Because it's so weird. I didn't know you were Filipino, and it's every single time in my life. Okay. I've genuinely liked someone first. I've ended up finding out that back to 10-year-old.
Sure.
Jess. So parents, self-driven.
My parents really enforced being high achieving, but I also have like a sense of I don't like using the word people pleaser, but I always wanted to please my parents and just like make them happy, right? I guess we all did to a point. So I just did so many things. I studied really hard and did my very best. And that's that's pretty much 10-year-old Jess. I'm very quiet. I feel like I didn't really know myself, but I guess who knows themselves only 10 years in the game, right?
Yeah. Well, did you have a rebellious stage?
I would say that it came right around when I was going to go to college. So like that 18, 19. So my rebellious stage came when another thing about Filipinos is that most of them become nurses. As I just told you, my boyfriend, he's also Filipino, he's an ICU nurse. Half my family is nurses, and I just decided I wasn't going to do that route.
Yeah.
Um, and I was going to become a musician, much to my parents' dismay. And it's pretty funny. I mean, if you're familiar with the comedian Joe Coy,
No.
he's also Filipino, but he does bits on this where, and it, for me, that like, I love that kind of stuff because I felt seen. But yeah, my rebellious stage came probably around my college years where I just decided I was going to become a classic pianist. And at the time, I ended up studying sound engineering with classical piano background.
Your parents were upset about this. See, I was thinking when you said musician, I was thinking I was going to get a mohawk and join a rock band. So you're going to become a classical pianist, and your parents weren't happy.
Oh yeah, no, they were very much upset. Like, how could you do this? You're going to be poor for the rest of your life. Like you name it, like the typical sayings I would hear. You're going to be poor for what do you think you're better than everyone else because you don't want to be a nurse? And I'm like, well, part of it too is like I'm extremely squeamish. Like to this day, I have two kids and they throw up, and I'm just like, oh no, what do
Yeah.
I do? Like I have to call someone to throw up, clean up the throw up. Um, and who knows what would have happened if I had to see blood? Like I could have fainted. Um, and just like, and it got to the point even where I like prior to college, I was going to become an optometrist because I'm like, okay, I think I could deal with eyes. And like
Oh
this would
no. Oh God, touching people's eyeballs.
like I
Gross.
think I could deal with eyes. So this might be like the best route for me. And my parents would be happy because technically I'd become a doctor. Um, but and I had I already had the spot in the fast track optometry school, and I just decided like, you know what, screw this. I just need to do this for me, and that's kind of like the kickstart of how I ended up in audiobooks too.
So I have a question because in my experience, I was very much, I mean, I had a very rebellious stage, but very, like, I'd say 40% of my personality was to impress my father. And he passed away like 3 years ago, but like it's still like pretty much everything I did. Like I'm like 99 years old and I still totally care, like wouldn't want to disappoint my father. So even though you went and developed your own career, do you think that that's still a part of your personality? Or do you think that you've kind of grown past it? Or do you think there's still this craving for their approval?
It's like a little bit of both. I think, I had a lot of traumas with having to deal with like my parents' expectations that carried on until my adulthood. Like a big one too was like I had my kids prior to getting married, and it was like an accident, but I wasn't like a teen mom or like, something drastically crazy. I had been 28. Chris and I have been together at that point for like 13 years. Like this was kind of the trajectory that I was going in anyway. It's
But
just
old
so happened
school.
a very old school parents of mine. So like in some ways I do like to impress them. I like, and because I love them so much, they're my parents, but
Yeah.
also in the same turn of that, I do have this side of me that's like, they're gonna do that, but I'm gonna do this because, that just seems better for me.
I bet it informs your parenting, doesn't it? The kind of parent that you are for your kids because of the way you grew up and being on the other side.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's parts where I'm like, oh, my mom was right. And then
Oh,
there's other parts,
really?
yeah, that's like, oh, I should be like I should, you know, put a little more pressure on my son. And then there's other parts where I'm like, no, we can flip this now. Like, again, like I said, like my parents would have been so upset if I got a B, but meanwhile I'm over here telling my kid like, yes, we passed. Like this is great news. And I think it's stuff like that where I can like flip the script of how I was raised versus how I'm going to raise my kids.
So, okay, so I can see the path, the music, going out in your own way, and then how you end up in the audiobook world. At what point, how did you end up, like, where was that transition where it went to audiobooks? And was there a point where you were like, oh, I love this? Where was the point in your life when you were like, something spoke to your soul and you were like, oh my God, this is what I want to do?
So I had gone into school to do sound engineering, and I went in thinking I would love to run boards for Broadway shows or live sounds.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I wanted to do. I did one internship with the local like rock venue here. And at the time, I could not lift anything, which the irony of that is like 5 years later, I became a competitive powerlifter. So, had I just gone like waited for that journey 5 years
Wait,
later, maybe
wait, I missed something. A competitive what?
powerlifter.
Like weights?
Yes,
That's so
like
cool.
like deadlift, squat, bench. So I was very strong in 5 years after I did the live sound. Anyway, I couldn't lift. And I felt like I was just like this useless person on the live sound board. They wouldn't let me do the boards, obviously, because I'm just like this newer person.
Right.
And I just thought, man, I don't really like that. And then I thought I could go into posts for commercials, like agency work. And I also did not enjoy that. So one of the last days of schools, I remember just walking around the music building like, I am screwed. Like, I just spent all this money to go to school here, and I don't even think I like sound engineering.
Oh
Like, what
no.
what do I do? But I've always kind of had like a second, again, I had like multiple plans in the back of my head of how this was going to play out. I actually had nursing school in the back of my mind, like, well, I could always just go back to nursing school and just like deal with it, right? And
I'll
just
just
like
force myself to look at the blood.
figure it out, because then I'll just have a job. But luckily my professor had caught me walking through the halls, and he was like, let's chat for a little bit. And he goes, what are you doing after graduation? I'm like, nothing. Clearly, I just told you I hated live sound. I don't think I want to do post, and I really don't like recording studio work. So I'm like, I think I'm just going to continue teaching piano, and then maybe open up my own thing when I figure what that thing is. And he goes, I know this guy who does audiobooks, which is Paul Fowley. He owns Common Mode. Why don't you sit and talk with him, maybe work on some audiobooks till you figure it out. That way you're not worried about the money, because he was like, why don't you make some money and then figure it out? And I started as a QCer and an editor, and I really liked it. I really liked coming into the office, like typical, like luckily Common Mode has always been flexible hour. So I would come in like 11 to 7, and I would just like sit and read books. And I had not been a strong reader up until I got into this business. And I think it was like 2 or 3 months after I started editing where I was like, I really love this. I could do this forever. And I stopped teaching piano and just kind of, worked audiobooks, editing, mastering.
Because what's striking is you had a very clear path. Like you were, Okay, you're basically the opposite of me as an employee, which is probably good that I'm freelance at this point because you stayed with the company. And I might be wrong reading, I saw it on LinkedIn, the kind of like succession, and you just went through every step, kept getting better and better and moving into the next thing, and loyalty to the company, and just you found a company you liked and you worked hard and you took, I always worked hard, but I'm good as a freelancer because staying with one thing, staying in one place with one thing for a very long time is not easy. It's not easy. I mean, did you love it that much? Is it just your personality, or because you've been there a long time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of both. Clearly, I'm a very disciplined person. So, like, if you tell me I have to be at work this day, I will be at work. Part of it too is common mode has always kind of fostered like a lot of flexibility. So it
Okay.
wasn't like, I think a lot of times, and I think a lot about this now that I'm like the CEO, and I think of like that employer employee relationship. And I think a lot of times where people butt heads and they hate their jobs is because there's just no flexibility for life. Um, and I'm just one of those people, like if you tell me like, yo, my dog is dying, I think I need the morning off, like I would have been like, why did you tell me that? Just take the morning off and then we'll figure it out later. Um, and and also like we have a few staff members that have decided, you know, they want to play in a band, they want to tour. I would never stop them from going on tour. And some of them have
See,
done really cool tours.
and
Like
it
they were
comes from
gone.
the top. See, that's the cool thing because I was a middle manager at my last kind of corporate job. And so from the top, that wasn't the message, but I was the messenger.
Yeah, and it's hard. Yeah, that's a hard thing. I
Yeah.
think I've spoken to Paul and he feels the same way too. Like he always talks about how he was able to raise his girls while directing and managing common mode. Um,
I
and
love
he was
that.
also very nice about when I went on and did my own family. And he was like, he would tell, like, he would come in my office. I remember I would be like pregnant, and he's like, can you just please put your feet up or something? Like, you look like you're stressing out. And I'm like, I'm not stressing out. This is just how I sit. I guess I look stressed when I sit. But he was always very caring about um, kind of like your life too. Which
See,
is
I think this is nice because I had jobs like that before I moved to the UK. I'm not saying it's America UK thing. So I assumed, I think I became jaded and I started thinking, well, the world's not like that anymore. And it's really nice because I had jobs like that. You love the boss and you genuinely want to go to work and hang out with people you respect and admire and you can work hard for and they're impressed and, and not like that the last few jobs I had. So it's really refreshing because I think you become, oh, jobs aren't like that anymore. It's nice to know some jobs are like that, obviously. You wouldn't still be there if it wasn't a nice place to be.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I want to unpack something. I'm really curious about this subject. And the reason I'm curious is because when somebody asks a question about the best way to do something, I usually have a very quick, very firm opinion. I'm probably not right sometimes, but I always have an opinion. But on this subject, the question came up and I don't know what my opinion is. Every single person's opinion was different, and I can see the point. And so I don't even know, maybe sometime in your career you've come across it, and maybe you haven't, but I would respect and be interested in your view of it, either way, whether or not it's something you ever encounter. So the nature of being a freelancer, right? Publishers reach out to us with, I'm going to tell you the question, and I'm going to tell you the different approaches I've heard recently. Um, and I'd love to hear what you think. So publishers reach out to us and give us auditions. And we all know that we need to be savvy about putting buffers in our schedule so that we don't overbook because you don't want to miss your deadlines. That's we're all terrified of missing our deadlines. It's a thing we don't do. So we try to put buffers in our schedules, but we also all know that everything comes at once. So what happens is you work really hard to get things, and then the bookings come at once. So you might have like enough room for one book in your schedule, right? And if something really, really special comes along, you would like put that in, but you know better than to like try to squish that book in there. But then somebody gives you an audition. And I never really came across this problem because I'm not the girl that I don't get hired after much consideration. We thought about, they either love me or they hate me. So pretty much I know right off if I've got an audition. I'm not the girl that they sit and think about for a long time. I'm just not. But I assumed that every other narrator knew the answer to this. And turns out they don't. At what point, because when you're an actor, if somebody gives you an audition, you pencil it in. And you don't ever book anything else during that time until you let your agent know, right? But it's different when you're an audiobook narrator. So some narrators have said, well, if your schedule looks like it's filling up and it's been 3 weeks, send an email to the publisher and say, look, my schedule looks like it's filling up. I'm a freelancer. Obviously, I have to take what I can get. And then somebody else said, no. After a week, I assume I didn't get the job. Or if it's something I really love, after 2 weeks, I assume I didn't get the job and I take other things on. And I see the point in a lot of it. A, you did the audition, so you've told the publisher you were free at the time you accepted the audition. But if you take another book on, at what point can you safely assume you didn't get that book? Because you don't always hear back. But you can't, I don't agree with sending a publisher the email saying I'm booking up now, because they're casting like 7,000 books. And if every audition, if all 8 narrators they've sent the audition to lets them know their schedule in fine detail, am I being too convoluted in the question? So is there like a certain amount of time where you can assume the job's probably not going ahead, and then if the publisher comes back to you maybe like a week before the book is scheduled to start, you can say, I'm sorry, I didn't think it was going ahead. I took another book on. Does the publisher not like that? Would they prefer to be told ahead of time? What's the best way to work with a publisher to make it easier for them? Because as a freelancer, you have to take things on when they come, and you can't just assume you've got the audition.
Right. It's a really great question. I can't speak to it that much because I don't know what's in the publisher's mind. But I would say if a week passes by and you haven't heard anything, and I would try following up is the big one. And then I would assume that you didn't get it. I would wait a week.
So you would follow up. You don't think that sending them an email is going to bother them, though? That many people sending that many emails. Oh,
No,
that audition I did. Yeah.
I mean, I've had a few auditions. Like I've done auditions on Ahab before. And I get follow-ups all the time. And I personally, for me, I don't get bothered. I know a few casting directors, and I don't think they would get bothered by those types of emails. I mean, if an email bothers someone, I find that a little ridiculous, but I would definitely follow up. I don't think, and I don't really know because I don't really know the publisher's minds.
Yeah. And you can't. It's like the question, how do you write the best reach out letter? Nobody knows the answer. It depends on the publisher. And they've all, we have lists. Send so-and-so attachments, but don't send so-and-so attachments, and make so-and-so's emails 5 sentences or less. Like, really?
I've been in those rooms where people are saying, I actually like it with the MP3, and then 2 seconds later someone's like, I actually don't like it with the MP3, and meanwhile I'm like, well, whatever you send that narrator, you can just send me, because that's fine. I don't care how or what it comes in.
Because when you're new, you put it all down. I'm telling you, literally, I had a 3-page spreadsheet, and then at the very end it says, oh, and by the way, sound casual and authentic.
this is
gotta remember all
crazy.
the rules.
This is intense. Yeah, I think too much. But to answer your question, I would honestly just follow up in a week and then just assume from there that you didn't get it. And if the publisher comes back, I've seen this happen where I'll reach out to a narrator about some project and then we're squared away, but they ended up getting something that they really need to take. And I've
Oh
found that
no. Oh,
publishers have accommodated it.
oh
I find it,
no.
but I'm
Oh,
not
I
gonna say
see.
who
I
it
don't
is.
know. I wouldn't ask that. I see. I would feel really, to me, you've made a commitment. I don't care if I've made a commitment to an indie writer that's paying my base rate and a big publisher book comes up. I should have had a buffer in my schedule. That's not the writer's problem. I wouldn't personally, I would go hardcore on that one. I wouldn't even ask. I'm sorry. Now there's like 500 narrators that have actually done that and I'm offending them and them, but
No, I mean, to me, in this world, stuff happens.
yeah.
And it sometimes it's not always like I'm coming in to take the next big book. It's sometimes it's like I have COVID. I
Yeah,
can't.
see that is different. But if you physically can do their book, you
Yeah.
don't just like, ooh, I got a better book. Do you know what I
No,
mean? Because
yes, I totally get what you mean. I would try, yeah. So, yeah, I would go with assume a week and then
okay, a week sounds
um
good, and then send a reach out. See, I never would have thought to send a reach out, but I would have thought I was, but then I overthink everything. You know those reach out emails, and you know when the publishers come back to you and they say, oh, thank you. And then you think, should I say thank you for them saying thank you?
if you get just thank you, I think you should go with just okay, I'm going to close the email now.
Yeah, you need to just mellow out sometimes. I think for people that think too much black and white, networking, that's why I'm really good at parties in person because, okay, if I'm honest, because most other people have been drinking, so I'm really relaxed because I'm usually the most calm person at the party. But um but yeah, and also I'm good at events where everyone else is really nervous. Do you get nervous in public at parties?
I used to, now I don't. I
Yeah.
feel like
Did
when I go to APAC and all those things, I feel like I see like I guess I know more people now that it feels comforting versus like, oh no, I don't want to be in this room
did
for
did
many hours.
did you have to do you have anything that you've had to like kind of overcome or change? Bad habits, things that we all have our thing that we keep doing that we wish we wouldn't do, that we wished we could stop. Do you have any of that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have tons. One big one that comes to mind is I needed to stop like being so shy at those things and just change my mindset about it instead of it being like, oh, this person I could potentially work with this person and it would be all great and all good. It's more of like, hey, how are you doing? Like you said, bringing the human aspect to it.
Yeah.
Everyone is human, everyone has whatever needs. For me, flipping that script of, oh, these are really important people to, you know what, I'm gonna go hang out with a bunch of narrators, have a few beers and have a good time. That really changed how I think I approach the networking events, but it also changed, I guess, how I come off. Because I feel like some people have said to me, you're really quiet. And now I don't get that as often anymore. Um, and
I don't see shy or quiet in you at all. Like I wouldn't
yeah,
peg you as a shy person.
I think it was like my first APAC in 2012. And like Paul's just like, you're gonna have to talk to someone eventually, right? And I go, yeah, maybe, but I don't want to. But again, I don't know if it's because I'm just more, I mean, 2012 is like I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's like 10 years ago. Things are a lot different. I've worked with more people at this point, and I've had more friendly encounters. I've seen more people in person at this point. So it's just more like, I don't know if I'm just more comfortable, or if just like I broke through that like kind of shyness barrier and like, limiting myself or not putting myself out there, not opening the door.
But seeing people as human, because I realize, because I know everyone's nervous. Everyone, like everyone. I've never met anyone that's not nervous. So the first thing I want to do is make them feel better. I sometimes stick my foot in it royally trying to do that, but the focus is on me making them feel better. So but I'm not a naturally shy person. But what I said about you on Twitter, you and Eduardo Ballerini are the two people on Twitter that it feels, reading your posts, like I'm comfortable in this world and it's a friendly place to be, and I have an opinion, and it's like you're comfortable. It's like this massive universe of social media and you're just like comfortable. And it's a lovely, because everyone else, we bring all our demons to every single post. And I like that. Or, I mean, do you like Twitter? What social media are you most comfortable with? And are you uncomfortable with any of them?
I like Instagram the best just because I can post like the stories, and I could repost stories that I think are valuable. I'm always reposting like investing things in hopes that some of my employees will see them.
Oh, I love
and
that.
and like pictures of my kids and stuff. I just love collecting that kind of stuff. I like Twitter just because it's easy and it's not a full blog. I always thought I would go into blogging at some point, but I'm like, I can't write. I mean, I can write, but it doesn't sound good, but my tweets just sound good because they're genuinely me like thinking these things out loud. Except like I'm like, people need to know this. Like authors need to know you should not be recording just your audiobook at home with your podcast mic. Like just don't do it.
So your tweet that you made recently, I'm interested in more info about it. I mean, it's very straightforward, but I'm interested in where it came from. You tweeted, "It's not what you do, it's who you are."
That was more of a reminder for myself, for me. I had worked with like a life business coach a year ago, and it was life changing for me. Um, but more of that was just a reminder that she would always tell me, like, it's not what you do, it's never what you do. You can do a million things. But she always instilled, like, to get to that next level of success or for growth, it's really who do you have to become for
Yeah, it's
this.
going inside, which
Yeah,
really sucks because they tell you that's easy, but it's not.
it's not. It's like you
There's
gotta
a
go,
reason.
you gotta do like these journal entries, then, you know, then
Meditate.
meditate, then do a few therapy sessions just to, lay it all out, and then like reflect after all that, still reflect in another journal entry, and maybe, just maybe, you will overcome it. And sometimes not, but
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sometimes it's a working progress. Like I think I have a lot of limiting beliefs I put on myself for no reason, and I still find myself even doing after the coaching, therapy, meditation, I still find myself limiting myself. So I'm just like, well, acknowledging that it's always a work in progress and there's never a finish line, I think is very important in those steps. So when you see tweets like that, where I'm like, it's about being you, that's just, sometimes it's me reminding myself to like, all right, it's
I'm
about
gonna
you.
send you a link to a book. I got an audiobook. Guys, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's like one of those, I bought it ages ago, like on one of my Google midnight searches, and forgot I had it. And I thought it was like one of those like ABCs of self-esteem kind of thing. And I, God, whatever. But in a moment of not having anything to listen to and not wanting to listen to like my normal thrillers before bed, I listened to this audiobook, and I always thought I had a really, really good self-image, like because I'm confident. I thought that was the same thing. And the first 4 chapters, I kept going, oh my God, oh wait, that's me. It was such a good book. And by the end of it, I need to re-listen to parts of it were a little bit too difficult, but I have to re-listen, but it kind of changed me. It was a really, really, really helpful audiobook. I'll send you the link. Really helpful along that line. And it's not like a big, sexy, star audiobook.
Right.
Thus, I can't even remember the name of it. But it's really, 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 really good. It's really good. I'll send you the link. I'll post the link on the group, guys, afterwards, because it changed my life momentarily. So, kids, you're so lovely. I saw the picture of you with the 2 kids and everything. So, careering kids, it helps you have a nice boss that you get along with and everything that's understanding. But just physical hours in the day, being a mom and a CEO. How's that going?
Yes. It's
Any
an
productivity
adventure.
hacks, any like learning to mellow out or tricks to do it all?
Um, a big thing for me is again, I like to go on like self-growth journeys. And I do have some productive tips that might help, but I'll go with the growth journey first. For me to be capable of being a great CEO and for us to be able to hold all the things we have to hold doing post-production for all of the publishers, I have to have an amazing team that I could delegate and assign to. So a lot of my successes goes to them. I've essentially made a system where if I or anyone on my staff needs to leave or take the day off, there's room in there to figure out what to do. Um, Many years ago, we were working very close to the deadline. I want to say like, we're like still like trying to put the pickups in 3 hours before it's due. I would say we are completely close to finishing the book the morning it's supposed to post where it needs to post.
Yeah.
And that stuff like that alone has been game changing for the success of the company, my personal success. As a mom, you just only have so many hours. Luckily, my 2 kids go to school, so that buys me that time to work. I have a very supportive partner who I spoke about this before, but I was asked to be the CEO about 5 years ago. So it was one of those things that it had been planned very much far in advance. And Chris was very supportive of that whole thing. Again, if I didn't have those things in place, I don't know how great it would have turned out, or if I would even be here saying I'm the CEO. In terms
I
of
love, because you have 2
productivity,
boys, don't you?
I have 2 boys.
So 2
Yes.
boys growing up with the example of a mother that's a boss. That's amazing. I mean, do you know what I mean? That's a big
Yes.
thing. That's a big thing.
Yes. Yes. And it's important for me. Like my biggest things I sit down is I have to be present for them. Like that has always been like I remember one time I had decided to direct something for someone filling in, and I had missed, I don't know if it was like the first steps or like first, it was a first something. And I was just like, no, I don't want to miss anymore. Like to this day, like I bring my kids to school. This is probably the first day in many months that I did not pick them up from school. My partner picked them up today
Oh,
just
because of
because
the call.
yes, but love to
Sorry.
take the call, and I get no, they get me like 80% of the time. It's quite all right. I will do it for calls and stuff like that. But I mean, it's stuff like that that I'm like super happy to be doing. And as long as I get those things, like I'm there for my kids, and I see growth within the company, that stuff's fulfilling for me, and that's enough to just keep me going. It is, I will say, it is a lot. Some days it's a lot of hours. I had the summer rush recently, and I was glued very much to my desk for a couple of extra hours more than I would have liked. On the productivity side, I keep something called a second brain. And the second brain, he ended up writing a book, which I got to do the audiobook with. It was so cool. Tiago Forte, he's on YouTube, and he designed something called the second brain, where he dumps all his information into some kind of note-taking app. So I have a combination of like a to-do list calendar plus my second brain, which has led me to the success, because I'm able to keep and hold a lot of data and just remember to pull it out when I need it. Like I keep authors' pronunciation guides, I keep feedback I get from narrators. If they're like, you guys, that sounded really bad, why would you do that to my voice? Or if I get something like, I really wish you guys highlighted a PDF with my pickups in it, that would be super helpful. I keep that info so I remember this narrator. If it's something out of our work flow, I would remember like, okay, so-and-so likes a highlighted script. If you can just take the extra 20 minutes to do a highlighted script, that would help all of us. And I just keep that stuff there, which I think has led to a lot of my success, just because everything lives in there. If it ever goes down, I would be in a lot of trouble, but there's backups for everything.
No, I'm not sure this is for you. And still finding time to boulder too. That's from Joel. Is that a thing, or was that him talking amongst themselves?
No, I'm also I boulder. I climb on my free time.
Mountains? What? I don't understand
No,
what
like the
bouldering
rock.
is.
It's in the rock gym. It's the type of climbing that has no rope, is the best way to describe it.
The one with the little colored steps on the wall that you see in the
Yes.
movies. When they
Yes.
go on the first date and he has her climb up. I don't know, I've seen it. He has her
Sure.
climb up the wall and she
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Kind
So
of,
is it
yeah.
like challenging, like the wall just gets higher or something, or
The climbs get more difficult. So as they grade up, the wall doesn't get higher. The difficulty in the holds you're approaching get difficult, whether if it's some of them have something called a dyno, which is a jump up to a hold. That's considered a more intermediate advanced move. The first beginner ones you'll see are super big, almost like a ladder a lot of times.
I'm afraid of heights. So this is kind of all.
Me too.
You're afraid of heights. How do you make yourself do that?
It's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, if I do it a little bit further each time, I won't be that scared. If I take long breaks from it, I will almost every time will have to be like, I need a moment because this height is scary for me. And I hurt my ankle, so I had to get on the ropes, and the ropes are actually much more higher. So it's almost like a 2-story wall. So each time I've had to climb a little higher, fall, and realize that the rope is going to catch me, and then keep going up and then fall. It's just,
This sounds weird, but do you think that in like walking down the street and in your normal life, because I'm thinking that kind of exercise must be really, really good for your proprioception. It must marry your mind and your mind's connection with your balance and where your body is in the place in the world. I bet, like a dancer or something, your balance is improved. Like, because I think most people, it's a big thing and people don't think about it when we're young, because a big amount of deaths in older people happen. You always hear so and so broke their hip, and then they broke. It happens with falls, and then they lose confidence. They're not able to go out more, and the more type of sport you do, where you're reminding, there's a guy, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I'll need to edit this out, Daniela. Note to self. There's a guy that Aldi Patel or something that does that thing climbing up the sides of buildings and like lampposts. It's learning where the world is in relation to you. And it's really, really good for your mind and your balance. And it protects you when you get older from one of the most common causes of death. I mean, can't help you if you stay up late at night drinking booze, smoking alcohol, and eating crisps. But that will stop you falling at least. Do you find benefits from it since you started?
No, except like I have less of a fear of heights, and I have a lot of fun. It's good for my mental health to not do something that revolves around a screen, because I'm always looking at my screen.
So you actually enjoy it. I think maybe that's where I go wrong with physical activity. I only ever do something if I'm going to get something from it, not because I hate it.
Oh yeah, you have to 100% find something that you love and try as many things as possible. I found that out too about fitness. I started my fitness journey like in my early teens, and I hated it up until I started powerlifting. And I think if I didn't keep powerlifting, I would have not kept healthy.
What brought you to powerlifting? How did you start?
My best friend was doing it at the time.
You have a 5-year-old best friend from when you were 5?
No. My college roommate best friend.
College roommate best friend. Well, that's good. You got lucky getting one that was a good influence on you.
Oh, she was also a bad influence too. She's a troublemaker for sure. You don't need to edit that out. You don't need to edit that out. She can hear this.
Productivity. I love that. And what you said about getting ready on the morning before as well. I've recently done that because we all think buffers. What I was saying earlier, narrators have to have buffers. You have like a week between. Andy Arndt is great at that kind of stuff. She teaches it and everything. But the other buffer we don't think about is the time I allocate for every book, if it's a nonfiction book, I add a half of that time onto it as well on every day's recording, just because I know that nonfiction can sometimes be, lengthy, and the buffer we give ourselves during the day, like assume you can do less than you think you can.
Exactly.
Then you don't have that pressure. That 3 a.m. you forget your words and you still have a chapter to do. I haven't done it in a long time, I swear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different with post than narration, just for a number. I don't know. In a perfect world,
is it though? Because doesn't post take, like, you never know what you're going to run into, and it can suck time sometimes.
Yeah, I have the availability of swapping engineers. If that was the case, you can't swap your voice. Where I think a lot of, I don't know how to phrase it, but that's in that sense. I mean, that's also why I can hold more titles, I think, in one time. Because like sometimes narrators hear how many titles we've done in a year and they're like, you've done how many? I've done, and I go, never compare. But also I have a team that changes.
The power of a good team, though, that as people laugh at the whole you can't do everything yourself, but it's true.
Yeah. And there's also ways for narrators to build certain teams that help their businesses, I think, that might, I don't want to step on toes because I'm not a narrator, but I always think like narrators should have some type of virtual assistant that helps with the emails. Just for me, there's been many times where I'm like, I sent pickups and I'm like, I feel like they just went into the abyss.
Really?
Like, are you there? Are you in their booth? Are you in your booth? Like, I always assume when it's like, I haven't heard from a narrator, like, oh, maybe they're just really stuck in their booth. Let me give them a day or two. But then sometimes 3 or 4 days going, I'm like, okay, I feel like I should have heard by now. And also because I also need my pickups right now. So
Can you not give them deadlines on their pickups?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're missed.
No. Okay.
I'm not gonna, it happens more than you think.
Okay, now stepping on toes aside, I'm going to bring in one of the most famous narrators of all time that we all listen to, and I just keep hearing her voice in my head, Hillary Huber of the I've done 400 audiobooks and never missed a deadline. I know that things happen. I get it. I know that things happen, but I keep hearing Hillary, and she's so proud of it. And I love that. And I keep hearing her voice. I know that these days it's like, when you're starting out, you struggle, or I remember in the beginning, everything's not so easy. You're learning as you're doing things, and things happen. So there's no point looking into the past, but going forward, if we can make their deadlines as important to us as they are to them, because I think you go past trying to get jobs. I think at a certain point in your career as a narrator, you're not trying to get jobs anymore. You're trying to build your reputation as an artist. And that's a much grander challenge than just, can I book more jobs and so on social media?
Yeah.
And they all said it. Hillary Huber, I'm so proud. See, I told you these calls taught me so much. Hillary Huber, I'm so proud I've never missed a deadline. Gildart Jackson, 500 something audiobooks. Why have you been hired, Gildart? I'm a known entity. They know they can hire me, and they know I'll deliver. That's the kind of narrator you want to be. Do you know what I mean? I don't care how many cool jobs you can post on social media. We all have to do it as part of the job, but let's be the narrator that's like, let's meet back here in a couple of years, and we'll all put our hands up and say, we've done 700 books and not missed one deadline, including pickups. Because missing a pickup deadline is missing a deadline, because you don't get your book in on time, do you? Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's correct. I mean,
let's be harder on ourselves. I don't think it's good enough to say, things happen, I get it, but let's be harder on ourselves. Let's get it right. I think. Let's all be Hillary and Gildart.
I've worked with Hillary. She never misses. It's amazing.
Yeah, plus she's Hillary. But still, there was a really good point, and I completely. Oh, yes. What do you want? What's your dream? Like your dream day, like you wake up tomorrow, your someday life. What are you doing?
My someday life.
Yeah.
I always talk about living in a van and going to the national parks.
Really?
Yeah.
In a van?
In a van. But not like a van from the sketchy guy handing out candy van, one of those luxury tiny home vans.
Yeah, like an RV, one of the RVs
yeah.
I can see that.
My dream. It's hard to say. I get that question a lot, and I'm always like, I feel like I really love my life that it's like a dream. So I don't know, but I would like to live in a van and see the national parks.
Do you guys get to take family vacations?
Yes, except we have been going to Disney for 5,000 years in a row. We're actually going to go to Yosemite National Park. We're taking our two boys. It'll be the first national park. Well, that's a lie, because they got to see the Washington Memorial, which is also a national park this year. But we had planned, when I got back from my girls' trip in Yosemite in June, I had booked our family to go to see El Cap. My boyfriend and I are big climbers. El Cap is the mountain Alex Honnold.
Right. There's no way you're afraid of heights like I'm afraid of heights. You climb mountains.
I don't climb those. I'm not going to climb those. Okay. No, but we're gonna go. I'm excited for that. Also, bouldering helps a little bit with pushing my fear a little bit.
Yeah, because
So
I
I might
think
not be
Jeff
as
Gill
scared.
jumps out of planes. For the same reason. I think I need to,
Well, I don't
or
think I could fly out of a plane or
yeah,
jump out of a plane.
I need to challenge myself, I think, like a little bit more, like maybe leave the flat. So I'm just exercise again. Okay, another question. You guys, if you have any quirky questions, throw them out there now. I'm going to do the final question, and if you have any, let me know. For the YouTube audience that's going to be watching this in 60 years, if you would want them to take anything away from this call, anything away from having met you tonight, any advice, funny joke, what would you want them to remember from this call and take away?
Um, I don't know that I'm a human. I don't know. That's like my favorite. I've really enjoyed this conversation because in the beginning you were like, I just love connecting human to human. I'm like, actually, I like that too. Like that's like my favorite part. Like it's just um boggles me that like people forget we're human. And especially, I sometimes forget too. Like I will work myself like a robot and suddenly realize it's 10 p.m. and I'm still sitting at my desk.
Yeah.
But I just hope people take away that I'm like approachable. Like if you have questions, I'm more than happy to, sit and talk about it if I have the time. I don't always have the time, but um that
But do you
that I'm
look at your
human.
job though? Do you not see the common thread? Like your boss, it sounds like, is very much a human, in that sense. You made friends with people at APAC when you realized they were all humans. You work so well with your team because they're humans, you value and respect. It's a common thread. People love you on Twitter because you bring yourself as a human there. Do you know what I mean? It's that not being afraid of just showing up, here I am, is what's so endearing about you. It's amazing because we all put our little masks on
Right.
sometimes. And you go right down to the humanness. I like it. I like
Thank you.
it. Yeah, I
That's
really like
kind
it.
of you.
No, I think it's your secret superpower. Are your parents happy now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're very
Okay,
proud.
good.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're very happy. And my sister became a PA, like a physician's assistant. So I'm like, they got one medical person in there. It's not all to hell.
You owe
Okay.
your sister big time.
She tells me that all the time. She's like,
Yeah.
again, the sisters, but I'm like, hey, don't act like you're not reaping the benefits of working in the medical field. I mean, you make pretty good money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You like what you do. So there you go.
Yeah, see, there's a benefit, but saying that because you get to be the black sheep when you go off the path that you're like supposed to be on. She's going to reap the benefits, but she's also got to be the tick the boxes. So, but grandkids, I think, fix everything, don't they?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
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 Okay. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to send you a copy of the chat so you can see it, so you won't have missed anything. I forgot to mention that before the call.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you a copy of the chat and I'll send you the link, or I'll tag you on the link in 2 weeks when it's out. And I will let you go be with your boys since we took you away from the school run. But it was so lovely meeting you. I knew I would like you just from Twitter. Hold on one second. And everyone says thank you so much. So now I know why everyone's just like, can't stop raving about Jess Escalona.
That's
So
so kind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate taking the time to sit and talk.
it was wonderful chatting. Thank you so much, Jess. And thank you guys. Mwah! I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye, everyone. Bye, Jess.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye.